Hello and welcome to How We Live Online. This is Christina.
And I'm Joanna.
And we have a special guest today, Mikala. Mikala and I used to work together at a children's writing camp. And well, technically I worked for you. And
you interned.
I interned. And Mikala is a writer, and specifically like you're doing fitness writing, health writing right now. And you have some big publications under your belt. I'm if I'm not mistaken. So, and Mikala can give her own intro.
Yeah, no, I think that you hit the key points there.
Mm-hmm.
My sort of side gig on top of my kind of boring writing day job is that I run a newsletter on Substack, which is called Body Type. So that's my own independent publication where I write about, I kind of typically say just all things about the physical self, body image, exercise, fitness stuff, celebrity body image stuff. And then I have written a few different things for some publications as well that are kind of health and wellness adjacent. But the focus right now is my own newsletter. Yeah.
Yeah. I've been enjoying looking at it.
Yeah, go subscribe, people.
Body Type.
Yes, we love that.
Yeah, and we'll plug every specific thing at the end too. But the newsletter, the big thing, newsletter, it's Body Type. Yeah, so we wanted to talk about specifically Fitstagram and our expectations for what health gurus in quotation marks online have to say about health, and then how we are supposed to be consuming that. This season specifically, we've been focusing on the self in terms of social media. So we did, our last episode was about Kibbe body typing. I don't know if you know about that.
I've read about this a little bit, and I feel like every time I try to learn more, I don't understand.
I'm in the same boat.
Yeah, I can't like get a grip on this thing. So I need to listen to that episode for sure and see where you all landed on that, because every time I try, I just kind of like throw my hands up at the whole Kibbe thing.
Yeah, essentially what we learned is that it's based in whiteness.
Yeah, I would figure.
Yeah. and I'm ill and tried to fit myself into it. And it didn't work. It just made me crazy. So yeah, we've talked about that. And then Joanna did this really good, fun episode about Apple Watches and how we can use our health data, and how like terrible Apple is at presenting our health data to us. It like fully prioritizes the wrong thing.
Yes. I feel right at home here because my friends on Instagram have seen me like go just fully unhinged about Apple Watches and how much I hate them. So I don't know where you are, that's where I am. So we can circle back on that another time. But I'd
be totally curious to hear your perspective. I feel like all perspectives are welcome on that, you know. It's like a catch-22 of like all your data, but then if you can use it well, I feel like then it benefits you. But
it's very much an it depends thing for me, which I think we'll talk about in various ways when we talk about Fitstagram stuff. But I'm like, hey, if you love it, great. I feel like I would go crazy with like too much information, too much data, metrics that would get me really hung up on weird stuff. So maybe it's just a personal thing.
I'm a data scientist, so I'm like I'm highly data curious.
Okay. Makes sense that I'm kind of data terrified. So maybe that's the difference.
Yeah. I am data terrified.
Right.
Synthesizing numbers is hard for me.
Same. That's how I ended up in the land of words.
Joanna, do you want to start with some of your questions?
Yeah, I'll kick it off.
Cool.
I was really curious just, kind of to get to know you more, and more specifically kind of like what motivated you to start sharing your experience and your perspective in the Fitstagram or fitness, health, body space online.
Yeah, I became a certified group fitness instructor a handful of years ago. And that kind of stemmed from my own relationship to my body, kind of, I guess, journey, if you want to call it, which also led to me writing the publication that I write. I got really into using exercise to just help my mental health and my connection to my body after I struggled for many years with disordered eating. So I just became kind of like a gym person, point blank, period. And then I've also been a teacher at various times in my life. So I wanted to get certified to teach other people in this setting. So kind of got into the fitness industry, and then, look around and see all of the things that can be great and terrible about that industry, like every other industry. And I joined Instagram specifically for body type. And I followed a ton of I just went on a spree. Anybody that talks about body image, body acceptance, fitness, whenever I log into my body type Instagram, it's just a fire hose of all these different things. So I started just thinking about what I wanted to say in the world of how people talk about this kind of stuff online, and specifically how they talk about it on social media in short little bursts. Because I write a newsletter where I write long essays, and that's one thing if you like that kind of thing. It's nuanced stuff. It's complicated stuff. It's our bodies. What could be more, maddening and personal. And then we have all of this information coming at us in reels, or little Instagram graphics. And I so often feel like we can't even scratch the surface in this format sometimes. So I just kind of try to write about whatever I can to maybe go a little bit deeper after I'm swimming around in the social media world of body stuff sometimes.
Yeah. So to clarify what you're saying, because that's kind of interesting, you weren't a consumer of online gym content before you started Body Type? You were in person in the community, but online?
I wasn't as much. I didn't follow as many fitness or fitfluencer or whatever you want to call them accounts before I started kind of looking at it almost more like research. Because when I started getting into working out because I lift weights, I was always watching. I watched a lot of YouTube videos actually about but they were boring. They were instructional. They were how to.
Caroline Gervin.
Yeah.
You know her?
I do. Yeah.
Joanna loves her.
Okay. I'm a Gervinator.
Yay. Okay, great. So this was, 10 years ago. I was learning how to work out, but I wasn't hanging out in TikTok, Instagram world as much when it came to fitness content. Yeah. So that's newer. That's more me just kind of trying to tap into what are people doing in this space. And I do find it I find it very overwhelming. I'm barely on TikTok. I can only handle Instagram right now, truly.
Yeah, I think we can relate to that. Specifically, I've opted out. Christina opts in as much as she needs to for the pod.
Right. Yeah.
For TikTok. I have committed this month to making posting a TikTok a day.
Oh, wow.
Podcast.
How's that going?
Already I'm done. Already I'm over it.
This is May 4th? Okay.
Yeah, this is May 4th. And yeah, and I was talking to Joanna about this because I made a TikTok version of one of our episodes. And I called Joanna the ultimate Apple Watch bitch or something in it because it's TikTok, so you have to be a lot. Yes. And she was I reject you saying that, but I understand why you needed to, because it's just clickable, reductive stuff. Right. And so I've committed to leaning into that fully this month and just leaving my hangups aside about it, because I've talked about it in this space at length, all my problems with it. Right. But from a marketing standpoint, it's how else are you gonna get people to watch you? So I am doing some lifestyle outfit shit, and then I'm also doing the podcast turned to TikToks.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
I thought about this a lot with TikTok in particular, because it's so weird. And I've seen so many writers talk about this. When you primarily work in a writing format, it's so bizarre to be what am I supposed to be doing with video? I'm not a video producer. I do love that it's accessible. Anybody can just sit down and make a TikTok and it can be awesome. I'm trying to think about how to distill the stuff that I feel is so grandiose sometimes, because I'm in my head so much about it, packaging it in a nice little video. I don't think the content that I or anyone writes is beyond making it short and sweet. I think that that's like a skill. You have to know how to do that. And it's really hard. I mean, I'm interested in it. It just feels like scary to me because it's new.
Yeah, it is scary. And especially when you're doing essays, like it's
right.
not, I mean, you can do it to a point. You can like turn your essay into a listicle.
Sure.
That's like kind of I feel like the journalism slant to it, but it's not the same thing. And then the goal is to like get someone to actually read the essay, which is also hard too. But there are people who want to read. They exist.
I know. I have a few of them. We'll hold on. We'll hold on
yeah.
to people.
So you started, as Joanna was saying, you started being, I mean, you were just into fitness, and then you were online, and then of course the two things converged into being into online fitness, or being a watcher of it from a research standpoint. And like from a writerly standpoint, I am watching influencers with the same kind of like inquiry mindset.
Right.
And what resulted from that is not just that I know so much stupid stuff about influencers, but I also find myself having to reset my expectations about like what I should be wearing or how my life should look or something, because I am spending a lot of time looking at these people who have a very different lifestyle than me and who are actively trying to promote, a fancier lifestyle or whatever. Does that like translate for you when you're looking at fitness stuff online? Like, do you ever have to take a step back because you're starting to get too into it or too locked in?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm curious if you've ever talked to anybody that does this or if you do it yourself, but I truly will like delete Instagram from my phone, take a 2-week break, put it back up. Like I'm either really in or I just have to like go cold turkey out, because sometimes I just get too like, I just can't with this right now. So like I'll step away. So I definitely get up to my eyeballs and stuff that I don't want to, that is just like too much. I think a lot of people, I'm sure, feel that way. And whether you kind of keep going or give yourself a break is the question. But with fitness content, specifically with social media stuff, I feel like I have a good sense for myself on what I see as just like phony bullshit, and what I'm like, okay, I can dig it. Like there's stuff that I feel like as soon as I'm 2 seconds in, I get like, what are you trying to give me right now? It's clear you're trying to sell me something, or it's clear like a fitness influencer. One of the things that drives me crazy is fitness influencers that I think are trying to sell to people a certain type of workout program that it seems pretty clear to me they don't even do themselves. Like they'll talk about, and listen, I think it's amazing to promote like at home, no equipment needed, 10-minute, like easy workouts. Like I'm all about it. I could talk about it all day, but you'll see fitfluencers or whatever act as though those are the only things that they do, when it's clear these people like lift weights or work out an hour and a half a day. Like I can just tell, you can tell by looking at someone, especially when you've been working out yourself and working in gyms for a while. So when I get lost in a corner of the internet where I feel like I'm just among a bunch of people that are like lying to me, that's like, I just like tap out. But the thing is, they're good at it. Like we don't always know if someone's lying or being fake. Like that's the big problem with all of this, is that people get sucked into following people that they're getting a ton of conflicting advice from. They don't know what's real or not. They don't have time to like research this themselves. They might be very new to fitness, and then they just happen upon somebody's, because like people get very attached to the personality that they're seeing. So if you love a particular influencer, there's this like parasocial trust that we have with people that can be good, it can be bad, but you might just like believe everything they say. And I think that sometimes that puts you in a bad position because you might be getting that bad information. So I guess I get really exhausted when I feel like I'm just seeing a lot of what I believe is like bad information. That just makes me like, I can't take it, because it's like that journalism mindset of like, oh no, like what is being put out there for people to consume? It's so confusing. It's really overwhelming.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. It makes me think like of the idea of authority in different spaces online, and like fitness and health content seems to be a really tricky space where like we have literal institutions
Mm-hmm.
that are designed to give people authority
Right.
on these topics. Whereas like lifestyle content, not so much, right? Like you can see authority and like if someone has an outfit you like, that gives you authority in their eyes, right? But if someone has a certification, like that is a literal institutional authority signal, right?
Yeah.
But it feels like the online space that can kind of get murky.
Oh, for sure. And
Yeah.
people don't, I mean, like the breakdown in the trust that a lot of people have in institutions, it's like its own huge conversation. But I think that's part of it too. Like, I don't know how valuable in the social media space people necessarily find something like, okay, here's an influencer that has 4 different credentials by like governing bodies. Like, how many people really care about that?
Yeah.
Like, if they make, like, it's unfortunate, like
Right.
I care, but like I do understand that that's not always, like, I want to be clear, that's not always the only thing I think that matters. Like, I've seen influencers that have awesome channels that are about, hey, here's my story of, you know, recovering from anorexia or something, or like, here's my like journey to learn how to lift weights. And they're not professionals, they're just like regular people. You don't have to be a professional to like talk about your relationship to your body online or whatever. I think it's just a matter of, to what end? Are you trying to sell me something? Are you trying to tell me that there's like a right or wrong way to do something? Or are you just sharing your personal experience? And I think that all gets very muddled sometimes.
That was beautifully said.
So what are like the signals that you get from good fitness people online and then bad fitness people online? And do you follow both?
Yeah, well, let me think about that. I don't know that I follow bad ones. I think the algorithm at this point, when I just mess around in my Discover feed or whatever, I think it tends to just show you like anything fitness. So like I'll see like crazy ones. I follow a lot of fitness people that are like the debunkers. So sometimes I see bad stuff because they're like, look at this terrible thing I'm about to challenge because I do have 4 credentials or whatever. So that's helpful. So going back to the first question, like what's good or bad? For me personally, I kind of perk up and get excited to follow and see as good the accounts that do like that debunking kind of stuff. Cause like I trust them if they're like breaking down, hey, here's what's like wrong with this content and here's why I know that it's wrong. People that are, you know, in every video are talking, they're referring to studies or they're referring, you know, they're not getting too nerdy about it. They're not like giving you a lesson, you know, in school, but they're just saying, okay, this person is making this claim. They flash on screen, like, here's a study that like refutes this claim. It's in their caption or something. Like the ones that have that sort of research tone, obviously I like tend to trust them more. Sometimes you have to fact check that though. Like, you know, not people don't have time. They're not going to like fact check every video that they see. So I do think it can be a sign when you have someone that has that tone of, you know, just curiosity about like, is this trend that's happening in fitness right now? What do we think about that? Let's break it down, like stuff like that. I think people in this space who talk about how nuanced and complicated fitness, eating, body image, all of it is, I trust those people so much, like right away. Like when someone will point to, I don't know, some workout thing and they're like, well, it depends. Like this could be good for you, or maybe it's not. This is overblown, you know, in terms of whatever results it's promising. But if you like it, great. I like people that I can tell are pointing out that this stuff is complicated. I trust them way more than someone that's like, this is the diet that will work for everyone on earth. This is the best workout you could ever, like those people, forget it right away. I'm like, no, because I do not see that as true. I don't think there's like one thing that applies to every person who wants to work out on the planet. I also think I wrote a piece at some, I don't even remember what piece it's in. I think I've referenced this several times. I've talked about, like, for me, with my own kind of history with my body and becoming a person in the fitness industry, I like the transparency of what these influencers have gone through with their own body, like if they care to share that. I think it's awesome when I've seen influencers talk about like the privileges or whatever you want to call it that they have, because I've written about that before and I've called it like easy mode. Like I play the fitness and nutrition game on easy mode because like I'm employed at a gym, so I have a free gym membership. I live across the street from a gym. I live in a neighborhood that's like really walkable. There's grocery stores and gyms and outdoor trails and stuff everywhere. I work from home. I don't have kids. Like list all of the things that make it easier for me to like get a workout in, cook for myself, whatever. There's a lot of influencers who I'm sure have those advantages as well. And when they are talking about like anybody should be able to work out an hour a day, that drives me crazy because like, no, we don't all have the same 24 hours and we do not all have the same gym memberships or financial situations or whatever. So when there are people who are pointing that out, I trust them. That seems very real to me. So like, I think that's a good signal. And I see a lot of people, I think I've found a nice little corner of people that I follow that like do that a lot, that will say, hey, if you can't get an hour workout in because you've got 2 jobs, that's fine. 10 minutes is still great. I like those people way more than the influencers that are like, go to the gym. Like if you're not going, like, fuck you. Like I've seen some really bad, hardcore people. And I don't know, some people like that, I guess. They find it motivational. I don't love it.
I don't need to be yelled at to
Right.
exercise. That does not work for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's like one thing that this is also making me think about is like the idea of personal responsibility and content creation overall, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like we've kind of touched on it a little bit with like bad creators trying to sell you things in ways that's sketchy and they're not being totally transparent. How do you think about that as from a content creation standpoint? Do you feel personal responsibility for what you put out there? Do you think others should feel more personal responsibility?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I think that's a big question. I mean, I certainly feel like with my content, whether it's essays or personal pieces or whatever that I write in the newsletter or just like random stuff I put on my Instagram, which like does not have a huge following, but I still feel like doesn't matter how many people are following you, what is the goal of like what you're showing them? And I feel like it seems kind of like trite, but my whole thing is just like honesty. Like I feel like I write about body image, my relationship to my body, my relationship to exercise, whatever. And I just try to be like very honest, even if the things that I think or feel aren't always pretty, even if it's not like we have this moment right now where this idea of self-love and self-acceptance is way huger than it certainly was for me in my adolescence and like the early aughts when everybody just like wanted to be as skinny as possible. And there was no like, accepting yourself is okay. That was not a thing when I was in middle school or high school. So I love that that's happening. I also think that that's really hard for people to get to sometimes. And I try to be very honest about like, if you don't feel that way, that's normal and that's okay. And I can be honest about when I don't feel that way, or I can be honest about like my struggles. So I personally see honesty as a moral responsibility here. I wrote a piece a few months ago that was about fitfluencers, and it was like specifically the mostly girls that would do those posts that's like, here's my body but here's also my body, and it would be like them posed and like looking really skinny and then them sitting with like 3 little fat rolls. Like the title of the piece is literally influencers and their tiny fat rolls, because it's very polarizing, because some people like they're very popular posts when you see these, and all of these girls are making like a ton of them all the time. So it seems there's a market for them, but some people really hate them because they're like, okay, great. Thanks for showing me your like teeny tiny fat roll when I am a bigger person. It's easy for you to feel accepted, like accepting of your body or whatever. So I get that that's like a really polarizing conversation. But in the piece I wrote, that is kind of like a crumb of moral responsibility I would expect from someone whose whole Instagram page is like, look at my body and how fit I am. Like even if these people's bodies are like traditionally the ones that are more socially accepted or deemed attractive or all of these things, I'm kind of like, well, it seems okay to me that they show you like here's me looking all the ways that I can look. I actually find that to be a type of honesty that feels valuable. That's the biggest thing for me is honesty. Just about like, even if you're talking about fitness and you're saying that, we don't know, the science is not clear on how this workout affects us, or like the science is not clear, or we don't know, or it's complicated, or it's nuanced. That to me, that feels responsible. It's also not the most attractive content because people do not want, we don't know, or it's unclear, or it's nuanced. They want, how do I work out? How do I eat? How do I change my body as quickly as possible? Right? That's like what most people want. So that's why a lot of influencers are making content like that, even if it's trash content,
Yeah. And I was just thinking like, as you were saying that you like or gravitate more towards people who embrace the nuance. Yeah, I mean, it's not the best community for nuance ever, as we said earlier with TikTok. And
Right.
So to find those people is valuable. And then also it makes so much sense that people just want an answer, when this is also something that is like, I don't know, like sparks a lot of anxiety and like, and mental health issues in people, like, okay, like if I follow this one person and I get a quick fix, my whole life will change or something. And that's, I mean, obviously unrealistic, but like to be in a space where you really are craving that, I understand. But I also see how, I mean, obviously it doesn't lead to the best place.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that Tiny Fat Roll piece. Tiny Fat Rolls is so funny.
I know. It's coming
Yeah.
up with my own headlines sometimes. I'm like, what am I doing? Because when you write a piece for a publication, they come up with a headline for you, which sometimes is like such a relief because that's the hardest part for me.
Yeah.
But the moral responsibility thing too just made me think. I think it's also like when I think about being a group fitness instructor, which to be clear is different than being a personal trainer. I teach a class. I don't work one-on-one with people. So I've had people ask me like, oh, can you like train me? I'm not certified. Like it would be irresponsible for me to do that. I just don't have the same credential. That makes me think about how when people take to social media to give specifically exercise or fitness advice, it's always going to feel kind of irresponsible, I think, unfortunately, even if you're doing it in like a soup, if you have 1,000 disclaimers on your video or whatever, it is kind of weird because if you're not like with someone in person, helping them with their form, or you're hearing about their injuries, or you're personalizing this workout, you very well could be giving someone exercise advice that like is not right for them, or they get hurt or whatever. And I mean, there is kind of a like at your own risk thing here, I guess, if you're going to follow exercise content and try it. But it's almost like the fitness influencing space itself when it comes to showing people how to work out. I don't even know if it's like responsible, period. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it does have a lot of, I guess, risks. I mean, I'm not trying to overstate like how risky it is to tell somebody like how to do a push-up or something. But I just have been in the industry enough to know that there are a lot of people. There was a really great piece in the Atlantic, I don't know, last year or something, by Amanda Mull that was about this one fitness influencer guy. I can't remember his name, but he does these awesome videos that are like really gentle and very like, no matter how sedentary you are, here's how to like begin learning how to do stuff. So like he showed these push-up progressions that were awesome. Like here's doing a push-up against a wall. Okay, now here's doing it on your knees. Don't call them girl push-up. Like he's awesome about this whole thing with push-ups. I think his name might be Hampton Lou. It just popped into my head, but I'll check on that for you guys. But Amanda Mull's piece was about how that's the kind of content that a lot of people need, which is if you are a true beginner, like you have never done a push-up in your life, you've never done a squat in your life, that feels more responsible because you're not just pointing at somebody and be like, go to the gym and start doing insane stuff that you don't know how to do, and you're going to get hurt, and then it's going to turn you off of exercise. I think we need a lot more of that. If we're going to have this content, I think we need a lot more of content like that, like true beginner content. I like that stuff when I see it. And I think people are kind of doing a little bit more of that now.
Yeah. The disclaimer thing made me realize like no one puts a disclaimer on their home video, like their at home workout video. Why would you not? I feel like that's like, I think Chloe Ting of everyone, which is so funny. I think she puts one in the corner,
Okay.
like,
Interesting.
don't, which is very interesting. She's like, consult your healthcare professional about specific things. Cause she does workout videos and she does a whole like food calendar or something.
Yeah. So she probably says like, talk to your doctor or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, I think her or someone very similar to her. But yeah, just you saying that made me realize, like, I don't know, people. But then if you did like start with a disclaimer, everyone would be like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Like,
it would be scary. Yeah.
Or they're just skipping right past it.
Well, right. Yeah. And I mean, it seems kind of funny because I know, if someone's showing you like, here's my little 10-minute body weight, like we're not talking about like the movie Jackass. Like they're not doing crazy. Like I get that it might feel like an overcorrection to like put a disclaimer on everything, but I do think that it is different, like to show somebody how to do a workout than it is to show them how to like organize their desk. Like there is more risk involved. So it's an interesting. You're making me think about something I haven't thought about before, which is like, are there any influencers who are doing this? I don't know.
When you spoke about, knowing someone's personal story, like I almost feel like I connect to that more than a disclaimer.
Okay.
Right. If I think a disclaimer is helpful, but like, I'm not actually making any informed decision off of that. Right. Like I'm making an informed decision to follow someone's workout or trust someone's content because I know they make those good push-up progression videos, or I know that like their exercises have resonated with me before. Right. So I think I'm thinking about like, where is, I don't know, like what's the middle or like a place that we can get to for like, where that's something that a lot of people do to like, achieve that responsibility that feels right and feels like people are like adequately informed about what they're getting into,
Yeah, I'm having a thought that I don't even know if it addresses like the question here, but there are a lot of people, there are a lot of influencers, and when I'm saying influencers, it's just like people making videos on the internet, whatever, regardless of their following or whatever. But I think there's people that are exclusively just doing content for whatever platform they're on. So they just are on TikTok making fitness videos or Instagram or whatever. And that's fine. That's one thing. Then I think there are people who like have a very holistic self-employment thing going on where like they're a coach and they have nutrition programs and they work one-on-one with people and they have YouTube videos and they have like a book and they have all this stuff. And the social media content is just like one piece and they're directing you to, hey, come be coached by me or whatever. That feels different because like they're using social media to get you to get to that state where you're working one-on-one with them. Like that's the ideal state, obviously, for them to be making money, but also for you as the consumer to like have a personalized experience with them that's probably safer and just going to give you better results. But the people that I think are latching on to like, okay, I'm like a good looking guy with a 6-pack or whatever, and I'll like make like thoughty fitness videos get a big following. Like people are doing that too. And do we know the difference? I don't know. I think unfortunately it's going to be the thing that most people don't do, which is when you follow someone and you like them and you're watching their stuff all the time, you kind of have like look into them a little bit. Are they a trainer? Are they like, have they gone through some kind of, have they like learned more about exercise and that's evident and they're telling you about it? Like what's behind what they're creating, I guess, seems like a question that I would ask maybe.
Yeah, I know. The Joanna saying like finding someone or like resonating with someone's journey. I was like, oh yeah, the way that I really like Alexandra Anel for makeup. I was like, she has my skin tone and like coloring. And she has the same like price point generally as the things that I want to purchase. And she's like a makeup artist and does YouTube and stuff full time to my knowledge. But fitness is so much more than like, your skin tone and stuff. like I like her because we have similar I feel like we kind of look alike. So I like basing my choices based off of her choices.
Sure.
So like in the makeup space, that's everyone looking different is always helpful, and same with fitness. But then there's the inside of the body of fitness that
Right.
makes everything, and then like all of the systems of the inside of the body of fitness that makes it just so complicated. I mean, how am I supposed to find someone online who's sharing their fitness journey who has at least like 4 of the same like problems or just like states as me, you know? Like,
Yeah.
and how am I supposed to find someone who's willing to share
Right.
those things too? It's hard.
I don't know. Yeah, that's an interesting question because like I think of course as people we're going to be attracted to people that are like us in key ways. Like okay, here's like a woman who's a mom that does workouts and her whole thing is like I'm going to show you how to do quick workouts that are easy because like you have kids and you're busy. If we can find them relatable, like we're going to be attracted to their content.
Right.
But I also do think that there's like all these different ways that attract people, I think, to different creators' content because it might be a relatability, but it also might be aspirational. You might be following somebody not because, oh my God, she's just like me. You're following her because you're like, I want to look just like her or be just like her or whatever. And
yeah,
I'm not saying that's good or bad. I think, again, it just depends. But as a creator, going back to the question of like what's responsible, I almost feel like the best creators are the ones who are thinking about an audience of people who isn't just like them. Like I follow this guy. He's going to be like, why are you so obsessed with me? Because I talk about him all the time. His name's Ben Carpenter. And I love his content because I really do think like he knows what he's talking about. He's a trainer, like he's got a coaching thing, whatever. But he's also like a super fit dude who's talked about going through his own eating disorder. I love when men talk about eating disorders because we just don't see it as much. And he's also does a lot of like sciencey debunking stuff. But he's like a gentle dude. Like you can tell that he's very empathetic and he's not like a hardcore scream at you to go to the gym kind of guy. And I feel like sometimes it's hard to identify, but it just seems like I can tell from his content that he's talking to a lot of different people when he's not just thinking like, I'm a buff dude who works out and that's my whole audience and that's it. Like I can tell he knows that it's not. I think he knows that he has a lot of different people following him because what he's giving them is a kind of like meeting you where you are approach and like just an educational approach. And so I don't have to want to look like him or be like him or relate to him in any way. I just like think he makes good content. To me, that's like the best, right? Like all of this stuff about you doesn't even matter as much as like you're giving your audience something that they find like very valuable.
I'm really curious about this idea of like niche communities online, which I feel like we've touched on a little bit about like, you know, what most people are seeing versus like, you know, on the extreme, I'm so fascinated just generally by like the internet rabbit holes people get into. We'll talk more about that later in the season for the listeners if anyone's really curious.
Can't wait for that.
But yeah, I'm kind of curious if you have any thoughts on like mainstream versus niche communities. And if you see, because I just as like a casual observer of the internet, right? I see recently, especially with TikTok, there's kind of a big push to niche down.
Okay.
So like everybody has to get more and more specific to go to like a more specific slice of people. And what I really appreciate about your perspective and like what you're saying about like nuance and having like a very authentic way of being that encompasses a lot of different things, right? So it's kind of, you know, I guess my question is, do you see any forces on the internet trying to flatten you or trying to flatten other people like you?
Oh,
or like any niche community experiences? I'm just kind of curious.
No, I love that question. It's like multidimensional in the best way. Okay, so regarding the part about like, do I feel like the flattening? I guess where that makes me go is like, what do people think my brand is? Right? Like, so Ben Carpenter, again, he's like, get off me. But he's married. I'm trying to bring them up. So like, I recommend you follow them. So his wife, her name is Sohi, and she made a video once that I was like all over it because she said she feels like her content is in what she called the messy middle, where She does not believe that she is a hardcore diet culture person that's like trying to tell everybody to lose weight and go on these crazy diets and get skinny. But she's also not what people would call like anti-diet either. She's like, if I have a client who wants to lose weight and we're going to work on their nutrition and like, yeah, they might be cutting calories from their diet or whatever. That's something that she sees as like this middle ground where people don't know like what to do with her.
Mm-hmm.
I related to that a little bit because I've only been doing my newsletter for a year and a half, and I'm kind of always trying to figure out like what I'm talking about a lot of different stuff, and I'm just putting it under this broad sort of like body things umbrella. And I have had people say that whether to me or they like shared something I posted online or whatever, they've called me a body positivity newsletter before. And I don't take offense at that at all. I think that movement is like very necessary and has a lot of good stuff about it. But I also don't really feel like that's what I am, because I'm very like body image, like questioning. Like I talk about the bad body image days and like why it's okay to be negative about your body because you're a human being and sometimes that happens. That flattening to me is not mad about it, but it doesn't like feel right. So, but the niche, like this niche down thing is interesting because I'm not sure I know like what my niche is, but do I follow people that are like really niche? That's the question. I'm not sure. Like, I don't even know if I'm following a particular niche right now. Maybe it's like
Mm-hmm.
fitness people that are also like nerds that like talk about studies and stuff, I guess. I feel like I follow a lot of people like that. So is the niche down thing on TikTok, like that's what people are saying they're trying to do, is to like make their content more niche?
I think at least this is what I've heard, is that the advice, who knows who gives this advice, but I think people
Right.
believe that to be successful and gain a following online,
Mhm.
they have to be talking, like they have to occupy a very specific niche.
Right.
And I think people say things like on TikTok, for example, if they're a health research influencer, right?
Mhm.
If they do a video, plants,
Uh-huh.
it never does well
Right.
because the algorithm has assigned them a role and they're like, this is you, this
Yeah.
is who you get. And like, you don't get anything else.
Right. I've thought about this before, and I've like talked to people about it, where it's a matter of personality versus like the concept, I think sometimes, where it's like, if you're a big personality and you have a huge following because people like love you. I've seen this, I'll talk about specifically like writing on Substack, for instance, because I don't know when it was, a couple of years ago, Twitter's a mess now, but there was sort of this like thing where a bunch of people that were super popular on Twitter like left the respective publications they were writing for and started Substacks. Like these are the people that are making like $700,000 a year on Substack. Like there's 10 of them and like good for them. I'm very jealous. It's happening. Who knows how long it'll continue. But those are some of the people that like they can write about whatever they want. They like don't have to have a niche because like they are the niche. They are the big name, right? And I wonder if who's like that on social media who isn't like a bona fide celebrity. Like, I don't know. When it comes to trying to start from zero and like establish a social media brand, I guess I tend to agree. The niche makes sense because when I'm following somebody, I'm following them because like I know what I'm going to get from them.
Mm-hmm.
Even if their niche is just, they're not making videos on a specific subject all the time, but like they're a comedian or something. So like I know what I'm going to get from them is like a funny video about something. So the niche thing makes sense. Like when it comes to my content, I've thought about that a lot. What is the one sentence description of what I do? How would someone else describe my whole thing? Oh, like go follow her because she talks about X. Sometimes I feel like maybe it's kind of muddy. I'm not really sure. The responsibility thing, I guess, comes into play there because if you're going to call yourself, like, I think my email signature says like health writer. And I'm like, does that make people think that I'm like a doctor or something? Or like that I'm credentialed to give you help? Because that's not what I'm saying at all.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So if your niche is you're trying to sell someone, you're trying to get their eyeballs on you, but maybe it's not the most responsible. It's not super responsible because you're not giving them. I think about these people that like vaguely wellness people that are obsessed right now with everything has chemicals in it that are going to kill you. Like they go around the grocery store and they're like, don't eat this, don't eat this. Everything has chemicals. I see,
I
like,
hate those videos.
I've gotten sucked into that like I need the
Mhm.
algorithm to like get me out of there because I'm watching it because I hate it, not because I
Mhm.
actually see it. And but they will have bios or whatever that say vague, like weird shit, like health coach or something, where people then think, oh, they must be important, and it's like they're nothing. They're just like fear mongers. So
Yeah.
there are people that I think are they're taking advantage of the niche to do some really irresponsible stuff. As far as us consuming it, I think it just comes down to like, do you really care about getting valid, researched, responsible content, or do you just want to like watch what you watch? I get it. People want to just watch what they watch, but when it comes to like we're talking about what you do with your body or like what you put in your body, that's when things get kind of dicey, you know?
It makes me think. So one niche that I have occupied, not like as a consumer,
Mm-hmm.
are critiques of like what I eat in a day videos,
Oh,
which
yeah.
if you've never seen them, a lot of times, they're just showing these unhealthy diets. A lot of times it's like calorie restriction, right?
Uh-huh.
So I'm kind of wondering too, like, if I'm in a niche where I'm watching critiques of these videos,
Mm-hmm.
but it gets to a point where like I've saturated the new ideas. I know what each of these, what I eat in a day is going to be. I know what's wrong with it. And am I being served these videos and me watching them? Is that healthy anymore? Is that productive? Or is it just like a secondary consumption
Mm-hmm.
of this problematic content?
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting example. Let me ask you a question. I know I'm the guest, but what do you feel? But like, I'm curious, what do you feel like you get from it at this point? Like you're watching somebody critique something you think is stupid. I would imagine that that's like pretty satisfying, right? Like, is that, yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's a little bit of like itching the holier than thou muscle.
Right.
Like I'm taking the position of like research scientist. I'm like, I hear the studies and I'm like, yes, like this
Yeah.
person is wrong. I agree with you.
Right.
I guess like personally, the question is just personally, is that productive for me in my life?
I mean, I don't know. Like I think when we think about sitting down with our phones to look at whatever we're looking at, that becomes the question. Like this is so like galaxy brain or whatever, but that like becomes the big question is like, is any of this productive for any of us at a certain point,
Mm-hmm.
And I remember somebody talking about this with Twitter once and saying like, when you go on Twitter, what are you trying to find? Like, are you actually trying to find something? Are you trying to find out like what's going on today? Are you trying to find out like what people had to say about Succession or whatever? Like, what are you trying to figure out? Once you get that, like it's time to be done, because then you're just like, you really are wasting time. And like, okay, sometimes wasting time's fine. But I guess for you, you said it perfectly. You're like, I already know that the concept of what I eat in a day is like usually dumb. I know what to expect as soon as I see the first second of the clip. So what you're getting from it is almost this like, well, I'm right thing,
Yeah.
right? And I think that there's nothing wrong with that. That's like
Right.
why people it's like the echo chamber thing,
Right. Or otherwise, I'm perversely exposing myself to the ED content.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. The algorithm, like what's the algorithm giving you? Right. Exactly. That's when talking about when I would go to my Discover page, if I don't have, obviously I have no fucking clue how the algorithm works, but like if the algorithm is like, she likes body stuff, I could get anything from like someone debunking a shitty diet who's like a body positive person or whatever. And I could also get like the most horrific ED content you've ever seen. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know what it's giving. I don't know what it thinks I want to see. So if you feel like you're getting really bad stuff, then yeah, I guess you should like pull back and not feed the algorithm. I don't know. I mean, I wonder if you guys have noticed that, like, is TikTok different than Instagram in terms of like what the algorithm seems to be giving you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like 1,000%.
What does one feel like? Yeah, what does it feel like for you?
Well, I don't look at reels,
Okay.
but my boyfriend and my brother, the only are the people who send me reels. And so their reels are very different than mine. And what I receive from them are cat videos, both of them. I wake up every day to DMs from both of them sending me different different like cat or dog videos, like silly,
Kind of nice.
someone falling and it's funny, or some stupid shit. And so that's what my reels look like, but it's because I'm watching them through someone else sending them to me.
Right.
And then I also get, I think, adjacent to like puppies and kittens, there's like kids. So I don't get like mommy blogger stuff, but I do get kid drops ice cream cone and it's so cute and funny, like stuff like that on Instagram.
Okay.
And I'm like, okay, whatever. And then on TikTok is where I do my heavy quotations research for the podcast, in which, yeah, I just fucking watch like fashion and beauty and girly influencer stuff. So I get a lot of that on there. And then I got a lot of like sketch comedy stuff because that's something I genuinely like to watch.
Right.
And I also think that TikTok is a much more responsive algorithm. Once I start looking something up specifically, I will get it much faster than if I am trying to find it on Instagram. It's just a faster reaction. My current niche that I love is hair consultation videos.
Interesting.
I really enjoy watching. There are these two people. One is this man who's in the UK, and then one is this woman in Australia. So they both have like really intense accents. And the person is sitting in the chair, and the camera's here, and then the hairdresser is behind them. And I just like watch the consultation of the hair. And like they take so much time asking this person questions about what haircut they want. And then you see in the end the haircut. And I love it.
That feels very satisfying.
Yeah, it is satisfying. It's heartwarming.
Right.
It's like people with really great accents asking questions and also like giving their professional opinion in the form of a question, which I love to watch.
Yeah.
And they like do it so tactfully. Now I'm just ranting about how much I love those videos, but they're like, so you do want fringe, or you want the fringe right at your cheekbone, right?
Make them think it's there.
Yeah.
That's very graceful when they do that. Well, it sounds like when you, Joanna, were talking about the niche down thing, sounds like TikTok is much more responsive to like if Instagram's just feeding me like, oh, she likes body stuff, whatever that means, okay. Whereas TikTok might be like, oh no, she specifically likes debunking wellness crap, or like what I eat in a day stuff. Like it's gonna give you like really, really specific content. I hope this answers the question a little bit more, which is, I just kind of feel like the question of like, is it good, this thing I'm doing? Is it good for me or is it not? Sometimes it just feels like, how does it actually like make you feel? Like I think a lot about just like the concept of like what disordered eating is. Like I write about that quite a bit in the newsletter. And this thing that just stuck in my mind forever when I read it was like, what does it mean to have a disorder, whether it's eating, whether it's anything? And there are people in the scientific community around this that say it's about these 3 Ds, which is dysfunction, distress, and deviance. So if you are engaging in this behavior and you feel distressed by it, or you feel like you can't do anything else but like watch these videos all day, or you're like hiding it for like, it feels like a shameful behavior, like that's okay. Yeah, probably not the best for you. But if you just enjoy watching these things and it's not causing you like any trouble, yeah, it might be affecting your algorithm a bit, but like who's to say it's like bad for you, Like if it doesn't make you feel bad, I don't think it's bad for you.
So true, so wise.
I mean, it becomes sticky when if someone's on Instagram or TikTok and they're constantly watching like truly like sketchy ED content, they might not know that they're distressed, right? They might not get yet how it's not good for their life. I don't know how to like address that. I feel like it just comes down to like a self-reflection thing. Like, okay, I spend a lot of time on TikTok. Like, has it changed my behavior? Am I suddenly like stressed out all the time about what I'm eating because I saw an influencer eating this way? You know, I think it just kind of has to become like you looking at your own behavior and going, how am I feeling about it? So the moral responsibility maybe is like we share some of it ourselves and how we consume this. Like we're the only ones in charge of what we see. If we're seeing bad shit on the internet, we have to just not look at it anymore.
It's true.
Yeah. But who made that joke that was like, what's cyberbullying? Just close your computer. I forgot what it was. Yeah. Which is stupid. No, and I didn't know that thing about the 3Ds. Joanna, did you know that?
I think I did somewhere in the back of my brain.
Yeah. And okay. I hope it has it. I hope it's not something that like the scientific community or whatever has rejected as being stupid. Like I saw it and I was like, well, okay, that like kind of makes sense to me. So I hope it's still considered legit. If one of your listeners is like, we don't go by the 3Ds anymore, I will respectfully not ever mention it again.
Thank you so much for coming on. This has been great.
It has. You guys, I love this. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Joanna, do you have any last questions or should we wrap up?
I'm just so thankful and I just feel you're so wise.
Okay, wait. Joanna calling you wise earlier reminded me, I forgot to say at the top, Mikala I was working with you when I had to get my IUD. And you were like,
oh my God.
I don't know if you remember this conversation.
I kind of like it's flickering something. Yeah.
I had to stay late or so. I don't know. It was like just you and me in the office or whatever. And I was like, oh, I have to get my IUD tomorrow. Really, like I don't know, like whatever. And you were like, you should just not come in. And I was like, what? You're crazy. No, it was right before because I was going because my doctor was like in Tenleytown. So I was like, oh, I have to go right now. And then you were like, well, you should just probably not come tomorrow because like you're going to be in pain. Also, like, great, you're getting an IUD, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, right. She's so right. I shouldn't come.
That sounds like me because I'm very like at work, I'm like personal time. Don't come to work when you're sick. Work is not the most important. I hope none of my coworkers listen to this, but like, please take the time that you need. And if you are not feeling well, do not come to work. So it sounds like I would have said that to you. Yes. Especially after getting an IUD, which is famously like not fun and hours afterward suck. So you're not going to want to be like watching kids, like
watching 10-year-old girls like scream and make a mess and then ask me to clean it up for them. And then I went and I got my IUD and no one could pick me up, so I had to Uber home and I was in so much pain and I had a very chatty Uber driver and I was like, oh no,
like please don't talk to me right now.
Yeah. And then actually the next day I was completely fine, but I was like, I can't go to work.
And I like if anybody had questioned it, I would have been like, she's not coming today. We don't need to. I made up an excuse for you, maybe.
She had a big day yesterday. But yeah.
It's a fun memory that you have. I'm so glad you shared that with me.
Plug your own stuff. Plug people you recommend.
Okay. So where all of my work can be found is at bodytype.substack.com. Twitter, who knows what's going on with Twitter right now, but if you want to follow me there, it's at not Jamison. So Jameson. And that's pretty much it. Those are the two main spots. On my Substack, there's a link to my Instagram, I think, which is also just it's like _ body type. And I would say I like doing this. I will go to people that I follow and see who they follow because that's how I find like other good accounts. So like look at who I'm following on Instagram and you'll probably find some good like fitness people. That's what my tip for how to find good people. And then look at who they follow.
Amazing.
Yeah, great tip.
Thank you so much for having me on. I really liked talking to you both.
Yeah, you too. Thank you, Mikala, for coming on. Make sure to check out her Substack, which is Body Type. And Thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for having me.